The new Versace Man Eau Fraiche Extreme versus the OG Man Eau Fraiche. Which of them is the best? Both of these are versatile men's fragrances and there are some similarities but also some clear differences. Man Eau Fraiche Extreme is the new version, but did they improve upon the original, or do I think you should go with the original instead? In this video I'll be sharing what I think they smell like, compare them, and also share which I think is the best. Before I begin, a like on this video is highly appreciated and make sure you hit that subscribe. And please do share your thoughts on either of these and which of them you think is the best. Let's start with the original Man Eau Fraiche and the opening before moving on to the opening of the new Man Eau Fraiche Extreme. We have lemon, starfruit and spices at the top, clary sage, tarragon and cedar leaf at the heart of it, and musk, amber and sycamore wood at the base. Versace Man Eau Fraiche opens up intensely bright and fresh. The lemon cuts through in an intense way and the whole thing is made even fresher and sort of more nuanced with a dose of clary sage. This is a very citrusy and aromatic intense opening that's fresh in a very likable way. I'm gonna get to compliments and mass appeal in a short while. What separates it at least a little bit from other citrusy and aromatic fresh scents is the starfruit. The carambola brings it this juicy, fruity, slightly green and tangy scent. This to me is freshness and fruitiness with a focus on lemon, clary sage and the starfruit. And the fruity side of it gives it sort of a tropical feel. Moving on to the opening of Versace Man Eau Fraiche Extreme. So we have lemon, geranium and orange blossom at the top, pink pepper, clary sage and lavender at the heart of it, cedarwood, ambrox and musk at the base. There's definitely a bit of a difference here. To me, Man Eau Fraiche Extreme opens up in an aromatic fresh way with a bit of citrus in the background. The lavender and clary sage cuts through the most with a bit of lemon in the background and a hint of sweetness. I do love lavender and clary sage, so this is definitely something I enjoy. However, it's an opening that feels a bit familiar. The twist to the opening, which separates it at least a little bit from other sort of a similar scents, is the soft orange blossom it has, which brings a bit of a nuance to it all. The orange blossom is quite soft though, and if you compare it to scents like Myself Eau de Parfum or Myself Absolute, I do feel that both of those are more floral. So Man Eau Fraiche Extreme is primarily aromatic and citrusy fresh in the opening with a floral touch and a hint of sweetness. Comparing the opening of the two, both open up in a fresh way, but the original is more citrusy fresh with a bit of aromatic freshness and the whole thing is fruity. Whereas the new Man Eau Fraiche Extreme opens up more aromatic fresh with citrus in the background and the whole thing is softly floral. Both are fresh, but the original has a more bright kind of freshness, and I do think that the original is a better choice if you lean more towards citrusy kind of freshness. Whereas Extreme is better for someone who loves more aromatic dominant scents. The more Man Eau Fraiche heads into the mids, the softer the citrus gets and the more prominent the clary sage gets. And the starfruit is definitely more noticeable. There's also a noticeable dose of woodiness coming through. And Man Eau Fraiche in the mids is basically still fresh, but less citrusy and more aromatic and still fruity, but also a bit woody. The heart of Man Eau Fraiche Extreme is very much an extension of the opening. It's still focused on lavender and clary sage, and it still has a soft dose of orange blossom. But to me it's even more aromatic and also a bit more floral. And to me it's almost like if you took a bit of the original, added a dash of Myself Eau de Parfum, and took a bit of the aromatic side of YSOY Eau de Parfum Intense. Sort of like that, but with a twist. Comparing the mids of the two, the OG is still a brighter and lighter kind of scent, whereas the new Extreme starts to get a bit more depth to it. The original starts to shift a bit and gets a bit more aromatic, and I feel that the mids is where you start to pick up on some of the similarities even though they are not the same. The more Man Eau Fraiche starts to dry down, the more I feel it changes into an aromatic and woody scent with soft fruitiness in the background. The intense lemony freshness is very soft in the dry down, and what's left is basically the clary sage and a soft but prominent dose of woodiness and what's left of the starfruit. At this point it's more of a skin scent. People will be able to pick up on it centrally if you overspray it and if you get a bit of a help from the wind. So Versace Man Eau Fraiche in the dry down is definitely not a strong scent. So the dry down aromatic and softly woody with a bit of fruitiness. The more Man Eau Fraiche Extreme goes into the dry down, the more it changes into a blend that's aromatic, ambery and musky with soft woodiness and florals to it. The ambrox is pushing through in a noticeable way and definitely gives it a bit of a depth and intensity compared to the original, which is a lot softer in the dry down. The far dry down is mostly musky and woody with quite a noticeable dose of amberness to it. If I compare it now to my first sniffs back when I bought it, I do feel that the floral side of it is a bit more noticeable in the dry down, but I still feel it's something that takes a backseat to the rest. The dry down sure smells good, but I also feel it smells quite familiar. So good, but not that unique. Comparing the dry down, both are aromatic and woody, but in different ways. Man Eau Fraiche Extreme definitely has more depth to it and more nuance to it thanks to its musky and ambery dry down. It's also the one that's more noticeable in the dry down, whereas the original is quite soft. So even though none of them are intense in any way, what's left in the dry down is more noticeable in Man Eau Fraiche Extreme. And I also feel it has more layers and nuances to it. Comparing the two when it comes to compliments, mass appeal, both are definitely very mass appealing scents. It's really hard to go wrong with any of them if you want something that most people will enjoy. Whereas the fruity side of the original will appeal more to some, I do feel that the less citrus intense Man Eau Fraiche Extreme is a bit more mass appealing. Comparing the two when it comes to usage, I do feel both are leaning more towards the warmer months of the year, but the original Eau Fraiche even more so than Extreme. Versace Man Eau Fraiche is very much an intensely fresh scent that shines the most during spring and summer, whereas I do feel Man Eau Fraiche Extreme is more of an everyday kind of scent that can be worn throughout the year. As for occasions, any really, but I do feel Extreme is a bit more versatile, whereas the original Eau Fraiche definitely falls into something that's more for warmer days and for the gym. So Man Eau Fraiche Extreme is more sort of all-rounded, which makes it a bit more versatile, whereas the original is absolutely something you spray on those warm days or when you're going to the gym. Comparing the two when it comes to performance, I do not feel any of them are strong, and the original is actually quite soft in the dry down and more of a skin scent, whereas Eau Fraiche Extreme is more noticeable in the dry down. Extreme has better performance, but it's not a strong scent. Both are more skin scents after a few hours, but Extreme is without a doubt the more noticeable one and the one to go for if you want something that lasts longer. So who are these for? The original Eau Fraiche is for someone who loves citrusy fresh scents and enjoys that with a bit of fruitiness. Eau Fraiche Extreme is for someone who prefers more aromatic fresh scents. The OG Eau Fraiche is very much a scent that's perfect for warm summer days or for the gym, whereas Extreme can work as an everyday kind of scent throughout the year. It is, in a way, that easy. If you want the freshy, the original Eau Fraiche. If you want something that's fresh but with a bit more depth to it, then Extreme. So which of these two do I think is the best? So to me, there are pros and cons to both. The new Eau Fraiche Extreme is definitely meant to be a more nuanced and intense version of the original, which in a way it is, but I don't find it to be an intense scent. I love lavender and clary sage, and I do enjoy orange blossom, so Eau Extreme is definitely a scent I enjoy. But while I think it smells good, I also feel it lacks a bit of uniqueness. Even with the orange blossom, I feel it lacks something. The fruity side of the original is really what makes it shine, and I do enjoy it a lot in the opening through to the mids, where I feel it's the most noticeable. However, by the time the original reaches the dry down, it's all quite soft and very much a skin scent, whereas Extreme has a more interesting dry down that you actually can pick up on, even though it's not intense. I do enjoy the original's more bright and fresh opening on a warm day, simply because it does feel more refreshing. But the depth of the dry down of the new Extreme does make that part at least a little bit more exciting. So I guess I would have loved for a scent that's a mix of the opening and the mids of the original and the dry down of the Extreme. Sort of like that, but with a twist. And I do think they should have kept the starfruit and built the new scent around that, since I do think that would have made it a lot more exciting. So here's what I think. Even though Eau Fraiche Extreme lasts longer, and even though it does have a bit more depth to it, I would still choose the original Eau Fraiche simply because of its more unique opening and mids. Eau Fraiche Extreme sure smells good, and it has the kind of scent profile I usually really like, but I do feel it goes too much in a direction that has already been done before, whereas the original's mix of freshness and fruitiness brings something with at least a little bit of uniqueness. So even though this is a bit richer, and even though it lasts longer, and even though the dry down of the original is quite soft, I'm still choosing the original simply because of the more sort of a unique opening and mids. So this is where I want to hear from you guys. Do you enjoy the OG more, or do you think the new Eau Fraiche Extreme is the better one? Let me know in the comments, drop a like and subscribe for more. Make sure you check out my other videos over there, and I'll see you in the next one.